People can hear us though. Hi everybody. What's up? How's it going? Good to be here.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna be the new official sound of Misdirected Mark.
I mean, it goes with
What'd you think of that role-playing game?
That's my answer for everything now. Some variation of
Yeah.
pre-show. Okay, here we go. 5, 4.
This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Initiate cold opening in 3, 2, 1, go.
So, welcome aboard. All aboard. Come aboard. What are we doing with this aboard thing? I'm so
we're
confused.
talking about onboarding.
Really? Because this is the first time I've looked at the show notes all week.
Yeah, well, we're talking about onboarding, so bringing people onto your, into your game, into the game you're playing. So we're onboarding. So come aboard to my role-playing adventures.
That was a terrible opening. My name's Chris.
No. And welcome to the 369th episode of the Misdirected Mark podcast, where tonight we're talking about onboarding.
My name's Chris.
My name is Phil.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
Nailed it. Totally nailed it. Nailed the cold opening.
Not the worst open we've ever done.
You nailed that with gumption and nothing else.
Just you know what? When you don't have anything, you just power straight through. Don't even slow down.
Oh man.
Woo.
Okay.
All right. That's a thing, man.
That was a thing.
That's a thing.
It's recorded for posterity's sake too.
Woo. All right.
When we say best openings ever, 369. So let's do one thing. Bob, what's your one thing? By the way, one thing is that one thing that we like to talk about every week that we did in our lives, be it gaming or not.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this game called Planet.
It's right over there.
Yeah, it's on my shelf.
And,
It's over there somewhere.
People have been talking about it since, Breakout maybe?
Yeah.
Because Chris played it at Breakout.
Yep.
I didn't get a chance to play it until last night, and boy, is that a hoot. It's a clever game.
It's fun.
Man,
It's
now I gotta go play it.
And amazingly, you would think for a game with a magnetic dodecahedron and magnetic tiles that stick to it magnetically, notice I said the word magnet 3 times.
You did.
You would think that if you dropped it, the tiles would stay on.
But they don't.
But if you kind of fumble it and bounce it off the table and then it rolls off on the floor.
You undid your world?
I didn't undo mine. It was
Jim.
It was Jim.
His friend.
And
that's
he lost
embarrassing.
control of it, and it went bonk, 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 and hit the floor, and then all of his tiles but one were like.
Oh.
He's trying to remember where he had.
Oh, you're out. You drop your planet, you're out.
We let him go.
It's just like your planet falls out of orbit.
Yeah.
You're out.
Your biomes all have to change.
But yeah, it's clever. It's fun. It's a hoot. Check it out. Planet.
At a store near you.
At a store near you, or a board game seller,
Something or other. Yeah.
or a
You can buy it
convention.
on the internet.
On the interwebs.
Or on
Cool
the real
games,
meat
cool
space.
stuff, whatever that website is.
Cool
Hey,
stuff.
Phil.
Hi.
Would you like to talk about one thing?
Sure. One thing, my one thing is played some more Forbidden Lands. This was session 3, which means that after the next session, we come up with the should we keep playing this game?
I'm pretty sure the answer is
moment.
going to be
But
yes.
I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be yes. This game is really interesting. We talked a little bit about at dinner about how this game is complex but not complicated, right? It has a lot of rules, but the rules themselves aren't very complicated.
It's not crunchy.
It's not crunchy. It's actually rather simple. But what I really find interesting about this game is the scope. The scope is really small. We started our game and these guys were like, we need money. So I'm like, cool. Side quest. I'm like, the brewmaster would like you to escort a shipment of ale to the town that's down the river. That was our whole session. We had encounters, they had to make camp, they had to drop everything off. In fact, you guys went down, made camp, delivered the ale, started coming back, got into a fight with some harpies, made camp.
Yes.
Like that was the like they went like a total of 10 hexes.
Sounds like a session to me.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was totally a session. But it, it like if I was playing Dungeon World,
Sounds like
it would have been like
sounds like a bunch of OSR game to me.
yeah, it is actually. I mean, if I was playing Dungeon World, it would have been like, oh, cool, you're going to the town of Coalfell, make a perilous journey roll. Cool. All right, nothing happens. Awesome. You are walking into town. Bam. Let's get into the story.
Not this game.
Not this game. It's every little thing, but in some way, I'm really enjoying it. It's so not what I'm normally run.
It's fun.
But it is. It's fun. So, yeah. I'm like I said. I think we're gonna get to session 4, and I'm pretty sure everybody's gonna say, "Let's keep playing this game." Ultimately, they're trying to get a stronghold. They found a ruin. Not far from town. They just don't have the money to afford the adventuring equipment to go into it. So that's what they're doing. They're delivering ale. It's awesome.
All about trade routes.
Yeah,
Potentially.
kind of.
Set up those trade routes.
Hey, what did you do yesterday?
I'm actually not going to talk about that. I'm going to change my mind.
Screw it. Let's not talk about Drew Smith, the secret weapon of the.
I mean, he
show.
was here. It was fun. It
But
was awesome. I made a movie in 48 hours this past
Yeah,
weekend.
how did that not wind up as your one thing?
I don't know.
No, right?
My head hurts. I have a headache. It's like somebody's stabbing a needle into my right
Really?
eye.
Right now?
Yeah.
Do you want something for it?
I just took something.
Okay.
I'm hoping that sometime in the next 15 minutes it'll go away.
All right. I'll anchor up. If you
Yeah.
need. Okay.
Yeah, I was part of a crew that did a 48-hour film festival film, and it was totally D&D inspired.
This is not your first year doing this. For
My
people who have listened to the
fifth?
show,
5th year?
right? People who
year.
listen to the show. Chris has done a number of these. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
with your cousin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin, and my cousin Brandon. Brandon has actually gotten so good at and has a ton of gear as far as like cinematography equipment goes and lighting and things like that. And Kevin's been involved in making movies and like rotoscoping and television production and things like that for like a bunch of years too.
If I remember correctly, tell me if I'm right about this, a little bit of trivia. One of the early Kickstarter movies for QCC.
A couple of them.
Yes, where the Jedi one.
The
I'm
Star
thinking,
Wars one,
yes.
yeah, absolutely.
Where
It's
these,
actually really good.
it is really good. Ridiculous, but good.
Yeah, we had a good time with that.
Yeah.
They had a good time with that too.
Okay, so anyway, 48-hour movie. Can you talk about what you...
Yeah, sure. So we went as ridiculous as humanly possible this year because these guys have always wanted to make a legit comedy.
Right.
So we've always kind of waffled every year about what we were going to do, and like we wanted to be comedic, but we always had some sort of genre or some sort of compromise where it didn't end up being just a full-on comedy. So whatever genre we got this year, I was bound and determined to make sure that we just went as comedic as humanly possible.
Full bonkers.
Full bonkers. So we picked, we got silent film and you have to pick one of these, silent film and femme de film, because I wanted more films with strong female characters. So we picked femme de film.
Yeah.
Yep, and the main character was Sue Denham, who was had to be an undercover detective. It was a forced thing. That was like one of the elements.
Right, because this is like a this is like Iron Chef kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, what's the most ridiculous thing we can do? And then my cousin Kevin came in and was like, can we do a D&D thing? And I'm like, I guess, sure, let's do it. Like, and we came up with the idea was that there is an underground world of high stakes D&D where like the prize, this is like the final table, and the prize was like a giant suitcase full of gold bars, which you can see some of the gold bars that we had as props. Bob, you have to pull it this way. There you go. For those on the Twitch, and then we had a suitcase too that went with that.
This is like full on drug suitcase. This is the metal. This is the metal suitcase that like I would like take out and show you the cocaine. You would show me the money.
Yeah. So we had that. So we had the game at the table, but then we went out to Springville, which is like out in the country, and filmed the actual like moments in the game as if they were actually
so gamers
real.
like
Yeah, we totally pulled
yeah.
the gamers thing, which was funny because they didn't get it. Like they did, a lot of them had never seen the gamers.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're like, we could do this, and it's like, yeah, just like the gamers are like, what's that? And like, oh no, this is a gag. Like,
yeah,
it'll
don't
work.
worry, you're doing fine.
So so Tangent Twin Katie was the star,
Oh, nice.
the female lead, who was Sue Denham, who she was the. Obviously, this is ridiculous, right? Like the high stakes world of D&D. Also, if you get killed or lose, like you die. Like they actually kill you in real life.
Awesome.
So like, people were getting dragged away from the table.
Yeah.
There was only 3. There was the dungeon master too, and Sue's role was to bust up this
Sure.
underground ring. but the only way she could meet the dungeon master, because the dungeon master for the majority in this chair that I'm sitting in right now was a speaker with a camera on top of it.
Of course, because
Yeah.
yeah.
But the only way to meet the dungeon master is to win.
Oh,
So Sue had to win to meet the dungeon master to then
Oh,
play the
that's
game of
very,
the game of D&D of her life.
Yeah.
The proxy at the table is very Hackmaster Knights at the dinner table.
Yep, that too.
Nice.
So the gentleman, his name is Bob. He's an excellent actor, actually. He's SAG card and everything.
I mean, with a name like Bob.
Yeah, I know, right? He not only did he play the dungeon master, but he played whoever the main villain in the scene was. Every scene that we had in the film.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, so hopefully it'll be out soon. We had a really good fight sequence, like 5 bandits against the 3 heroes. People were dying left and right. It was great.
Did I ever tell you my my story idea for the for the D&D caddy?
The D&D caddy.
Yes.
So there's like somebody that like hands you your weapons or something,
Well, no.
or hands you your dice.
So right, so it's also a high stakes D&D world, like world of high stakes D&D play, except that like you bring your caddy, so you're like, I'm gonna throw fireball, and like you start to point, and you like look at your caddy, and your caddy's like, you're like,
Man.
and like you slide your finger over and be like, here, and your caddy's like,
Why didn't I think of using that
Yep.
gag? That's a good gag.
Yep.
You've
Yeah.
said it before. Now that you've said it, I'm
and then
remembering
off
it.
camera, like the caddies like sit around afterwards, like complaining about their players.
And then
Uh-huh.
you've got
like-
the one grizzled old veteran caddy with a patch over his eye. He lost it with in a D20 accident.
Mhm.
Someone failed to roll and hucked their D20.
Right. Somebody gets fired for giving the wrong set of dice.
That's funny.
Like those aren't my crit dice.
So so I was one of the writers in the writers room, and then I ran a lot of the sound, and I got an assistant director credit
That's awesome.
because one of our directors, we had 2 directors. One of our directors had a seizure,
Yikes.
like at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Were they okay?
They're fine.
Okay.
But like so we were down one of our directors, and people were kind of like, well, what do we do now? So because Kevin, who was the other director, like was taking care of stuff, so I'm like, all right, let's go. So then I wrangled everybody to get a bunch of scenes shot.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun.
Cool stuff.
Do we have any announcements?
I think we just have one, which is just a little bit of an apology. I don't remember if it was the last episode or the episode before, but we did get a comment about the night we had the little bit of the domestic that happened outside on the street.
Yeah.
Yes.
We should have put something at the beginning of the episode, and we didn't. So we should probably have put a little like, hey,
We will
note.
endeavor to do better in the future.
Yeah, we'll endeavor
Yes.
to do better with that. If something happens, because honestly, we're so used to recording the show live that like we go live to MP3 and then out the door.
Yeah.
There's
no
we
editing.
don't do a lot of post on it, so like we've fallen out of the habit of putting in warning messages and things like that. So if something like that happens again, where if we have the window open and something happens, we'll make sure that we record something and put it on to the front of it. So anyone who was caught off guard by it, and if anyone was, we apologize for the poor sound quality because of the sound bleeding in, but honestly, like it was that or heat stroke.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty hot that day. Like
Yeah.
either the windows were staying open or we were gonna die
Also, if you're hearing air conditioning in the background tonight, it's because it's too hot.
because it's hot and we're just now leaving the AC on. So anyway, it's very comfortable right now. Like
It's
I'm
lovely.
very comfortable.
And my headache is just about gone.
Good.
There you go.
Anyway, that's our major announcement. The IDGN scholarship is still going on, so
Donate some money.
donate some money. We'll give you some stuff. I
Yeah.
swear.
Donate some money. There's
We'll
money
do
to
that.
be donated.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right, that's it. I think
$5, $1, whatever dollars.
whatever you do actually helps.
50 cents, which will match.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we'll match it. We're gonna match it.
Yeah.
So, but seriously, it does actually go to help game designers, and it helps people who wouldn't normally have the opportunity to go to a place like Metatopia to go and have their games played by other game designers and given critique and all that stuff.
And you never know. One of those people might be the next host on Misdirected Mark Productions.
Yep.
Yeah, or your next favorite game.
That
Like,
too.
why wouldn't you want to support this?
I only say that because, Metatopia was BXP.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, that's absolutely true. We were at Metatopia when we met. Jeez.
Monica.
Yeah, we
Monica.
met Monica. Just Monica. Monica
Not
was
Ray.
No, Ray wasn't there. It was just Monica.
Just Monica.
Yeah.
So yeah, go to the website. There's all the details you need there, and there's a link for for donating, and
Oh,
away you go. And you
Yeah.
can apply for the scholarship as well.
Yes.
the other thing, we added a section to the Misdirected Mark chat room. There's now an encoded design.
You mean the
section.
forums?
Forum, sorry. We've now added a encoded design section.
Forum.misdirectedmark.com.
Yep.
By the way, you should just join our forums. So I finally sent off the bag Thulu that we
Oh yeah, that we auctioned off.
that we
Or not auctioned,
that we contested off. So the next we have one more bag Thulu to give away.
Sweet.
So I know what we're going to do for our next bag Thulu.
Awesome.
The first 100 people who join the forum, one of them is going to get the bag Thulu.
Oh. Cool.
There you go.
There you go.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
So once we get to 100 people,
Misdirected Mark network hosts not eligible.
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
So the first 100 people outside of our network hosts.
Yes. So yeah, but yeah, come join. Whatchamacallit? Come join the forums where you can always post about any episode that goes up because there are forums for each individual show.
No, I didn't get her bag Thulu, which I have it set aside for Andy.
Ironically, she was here. You could have delivered it.
I understand that, but I forgot. I was
Yeah.
busy. I was busy that weekend.
Busy running.
Yeah, I might have been busy.
convention?
I might have been
Okay.
busy. I might spend the $5.43 for Misdirected. Well, it's probably like 7 because it's Chicago, or it's not. It's Denver, so it's farther. No, because New Mexico was $5.43, so I imagine Denver is $5.43.
I'm sure it is.
So
Do you want to do the next segment?
do we?
I think we do.
Okay.
Do we?
I'm gonna hit the button. You ready?
Okay, hang on. Begin.
You sure?
Yep.
Are you positive? I'm not ready.
Okay, hang on.
Can I just take a breath because I have to be prepared for this.
Focus.
I need to get ready to be onboarded.
Yep.
You know.
Here we
All
go.
right, here we go. 3, 2.
Workshop! On board! Learn to play a game! Make this your new hobby! Workshop! On board! Don't suck at it! Get people playing!
Don't suck.
I usually say yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Golly.
It's been a while since we've done the workshop, I suppose.
Yeah.
Segment onboarding I saw in the chat room. Sorry.
Yes.
So with our exploratory play of For the Queen done, we wanted to expand on a topic that we mentioned in part 1, onboarding, which is really more like, what are we going to talk about this week? I have no idea. Let me throw out some topics. Phil was like, I like onboarding. I'm like, all right, we'll do that.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to dig into that idea. So what is onboarding? Why is it important? And how do we as game masters and game designers use that to get games going smoothly and to get new people into the hobby? But first, of course, we need to start with some definitions, right, Phil?
Indeed we do.
Do you want me to hit your bumper?
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah? You
Yes,
sure?
yes, please.
Okay, here we go.
Behold, you are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Oh my god, so ridiculous. I love it every time. Okay.
By the way, the workshop woke up somebody's bunny.
Oh.
Deb's bunny.
Sorry,
Devin
Deb.
John's bunny was awoken.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, onboarding is defined as the action or process of integrating a new employee into an organization or familiarizing a new customer or client with one's products or services. Clearly, that's not going to work for us for tonight. So just
I don't know what you're talking about.
changing it
Familiarizing
up
a
a
new
little.
client or customer with one's products or services?
yeah, it's pretty close.
Sounds exactly like what we're talking about.
How about this one? The action or process of integrating players, new or old, into a game and familiarizing them with the system, setting, and situation.
Sure, that sounds way more RPG-ish.
Yeah, right?
It'll look good in the Misdirected Mark role-playing game jamming advice
Oh my god,
book.
I can't wait to write that book. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit. Integrating players means that we want to get the players and the game brought together.
Correct. So we want players to be on the same page?
Yeah, right?
We want
And-
players to understand the game?
Exactly.
Maybe? Possibly?
Yeah, I think we do. We familiarize the system, setting, and situation, right? So we're using Jason Pitt's term. So by way of review, those are the system,
Yeah, those are the rules.
the setting,
Which are, that place that the game takes place.
and the situation.
Before that place that the game takes place.
It's okay. I was with
okay.
you.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, the situation, that's what you do.
Yeah, what do you do in this game?
Yeah, what's going on?
Exactly. Okay. So really, the three of these are key. Now, I did not put in subtext because I don't think for onboarding purposes you need to pick up the subtext of the game. I think that's a thing you can pick up through
Subtext
play.
is tricky anyway.
Yeah. I think it's a thing that you will pick up along the way.
Yeah.
Okay. So
by the way, if you the setting and the situation should give you the subtext anyway.
Yes. Yeah, in very many ways. So really the three of these are what is going to allow you to be able to progress through the game, right? So if we understand how to do things by way of system, and we understand where we are by setting, and we understand what we're supposed to do, we should be able to actually engage this game and go forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we said familiarize, right? We purposely did not use the words for mastery, because for onboarding, we're not looking for people to be masters of the game the second they play it. We're looking for people who just kind of get the gist of this, because that's where future games will come out of, and you can build mastery from there.
I agree. So I suppose we should talk about the function of onboarding.
I would think so, right?
All right. So the first function of onboarding is to facilitate a quick transition from knowing very little about the game into playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's very hard. I mean, it's hard to get games off the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be anyway.
It can be, depending on the game.
Yeah. Some games are very simple, but they require very little onboarding.
Right.
But games that are more complicated require lots and lots of onboarding.
Yeah, and there's a problem with this, because when we're teaching games to new players, right? So like if we're taking too long in explaining things before anything like meaningful, like i.e. fun happens,
I get bored.
right?
Like, can I just play the game?
Yeah, like
please just let me play the game.
Does it take 2 hours before we can start playing the game? Right? Like it sours people to the experience of the game. And you've heard people who've like tried role playing and failed at it often make this comment, right? Like and it can also be intimidating, right? So like sometimes people just perceive a game, whether they're experienced gamers or not, as too complex.
It's true.
Right? Because if you have trouble like starting to play a game.
How do people feel this way about Blades in the Dark?
Blades in the I do actually think Blades in the Dark is, I mean, because it has a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
Right? So it can be intimidating.
It's not nearly as complicated as it seems.
It's not, but it has that appearance.
It does.
Yep.
Also, it is that complicated because it's not. Anyways, never mind.
Right. Well, it has a lot. It has a lot of things going on.
It's bad at onboarding.
Oh, it is bad at onboarding, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, we might be putting too much player prep up front, which can also lead to boredom. Like, hey, I want you to play this game, but like,
gotta go read like 50 pages.
Right. Okay.
Which is so because nobody learns games that way.
That's not how people learn games.
Be it board games, be it role-playing games, be it video games.
Now let's not. Now we're being
nobody.
Right. Let's not nobody.
There's a very small number of people who learn games.
Correct.
That way.
Most of my generation of gamers, most of us learned because someone else taught us how to play. In fact, I didn't even read the rules for basic D&D. Like I just played the way the GM who taught me how to play.
Yeah. When it comes to board games, I'm a rule book reader. Mostly because I like to see how terrible they are.
I'm even one worse than you. Depending on the game, like especially if I'm gonna play it with people for the first time, I will go play the game by myself.
I'll do that sometimes.
Like I did that with what is it? The Pandemic, the one with the dice.
Pandemic, the Cure.
Yes. Like I went and just sat and played that like by myself, like for like a game or two.
Sure.
And then was like, oh, okay, I dig what's going on here. I feel like I could teach people.
Well, it's a co-op, right?
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier to play by yourself.
Yeah, because you can just I'm playing all the roles.
But I straight up played Lords of Waterdeep by myself.
To learn it?
Learn it.
Absolutely.
That was a long time ago. I feel like I'm much better at like just learning games on the fly these days.
Exactly.
Anyways, I suppose we should move on to the next.
Yeah,
thing,
there's a secondary function of onboarding.
Yeah, I mean it helps spread the hobby to people who have not played games before. So
right.
I mean, the better you're onboarding, the easier it is to get a game going, which means the easier it is for people to play. So, I mean, existing players have like that tolerance, right? Like for the effort that you need to get into a new game. Like, oh, we understand the buy-in to play this game.
I mean, I just said it at the start of the show, right? We're playing 4 sessions of Forbidden Lands to figure out whether we want to keep playing Forbidden Lands.
It's true, and that's like a normal thing for you.
It is for me, right? That is a very.
It's not necessarily a normal thing though for. It's not about onboarding though, right? That's just about finding out if you like the game. The rules can be stupid simple, or they can be very complex.
Well, I think we'll talk about it a little further on, but like it took 2 to 3 sessions to kind of get into how does this all work.
Stupid simple might not be the right phrase to use.
Probably not. Anyway.
I don't think it's offensive. Somebody let me know if it's offensive or not.
Right. So you mentioned experienced players having a tolerance. I will say that like new players often don't have that tolerance for games. And if your character creation takes like over 2 hours,
Palladium.
If your character creation takes over 2 hours,
But
like
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness.
that wasn't even that fast, man. Like you were
No, I'm
in
not saying it was
there
fast.
because you wanted to play mutant
Yeah,
animals.
yeah.
Right. But anyway, if that takes a long time, like you totally will sour to the experience.
Well, let's compare it to something where we open up the box and in a few minutes the new player is making an attack roll, ensuring their first hit. Or, we're just playing the game, like, for the queen.
I mean, that was the thing again. We talked about when we did the EP that For the Queen has that amazing onboarding. Right? Makes things very, very smooth.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for a lot of reasons.
So, when you do that, you have a much greater chance of retaining that person. I think I might have said that already.
I think it's worth repeating, right? Yeah. The smoother your onboarding, the better chance people are sticking around.
So there's two ways you can onboard. The first one is intentionally. The second one is absent. Let's talk about intentionally.
Yep.
The designer has put an adventure or some other activity into the text that is designed to onboard the players, including the GM, into the game, a la Turning Point, which is why you should go buy it.
Indeed.
You missed, for those in podcast land that didn't see the video, Phil made the face, like his stern face, but I don't know if it's actually a stern face. Somebody else can tell me. I think they're in the chat room. Anyways, and can point.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that your stern face or was that your jokey stern face?
Jokey stern face.
That was your jokey stern face. I feel like your stern face is something else.
So yeah, that can be very intentional, right? That can be designed right into the game. What if it's not there?
Well, if there's no onboarding built into the game, the GM has to do all the work, then they need to figure out how to do that in their first 2 sessions.
Right?
Which is work.
It is a lot of work.
It's actually the most work.
You're not wrong, right? It is like a ton of work to get started, and often, not always, but often, if you're learning the game at the same time, you're also onboarding yourself.
Yep.
Right? Which it's different if like you've played like I've got 10 years of mastery of this game and I'm just teaching new players to play. Like that onboarding is very different from hey, I'm also learning this game. I mean, our Forbidden Lands game, like we're in and out of those books constantly. Like constantly flipping pages the whole time we're playing.
Forbidden Lands has a bunch of subsystems, right?
It does. It has a bunch of subsystems that require they're simple, but you have to kind of like check to make sure how they operate.
If I was from what I've heard about Forbidden Lands.
Yeah.
And do you mind if we talk about how I would onboard a game?
We are going to definitely do that in the second section.
Can Bob? Can you put a note down for how to onboard Forbidden Lands somewhere in that section?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead and put it in.
I have some thoughts about that.
Go ahead and put it in question 3.
Thank you.
Question 3 would be a perfect.
I do have some thoughts about that.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I will.
You can tell me I'm wrong, but this is my idea for certain kinds of games.
No, it's fine. I'll tell you if I did it or not.
Okay.
I will also then, I think we should also suggest some tips for onboarding Blades in the Dark, because both of us have run Blades games before.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
I actually think onboarding Blades games is not nearly as hard. They just didn't do a very good job of explaining it.
I agree.
So should we talk about the goals of onboarding?
Yeah. So what is the purpose of onboarding, right? So we mentioned a little bit of this at the start of the segment, where we're talking about familiarizing the players, and we want to include the GM as a player in that, right? So we want to familiarize all the players with the system, the setting, and the situation.
Yeah, I think that's a really great. It's worth saying it again. The system, the setting, and the situation. It's like the 4th time we said it.
Exactly.
It's very important.
We keep saying it for a reason.
Those 3 things are very important.
Right. And what that really covers when we're talking about is it really covers session 0 and session 1.
So here's my question.
Yes.
Is there any way that we can make our session 0 and session 1 even more compact so that it only lasts? So I think this is the thing to think about when we're talking about onboarding games. Can we make it so compact that those 2 things are actually in our first session of play?
There are some shortcuts.
Yeah.
And it also depends on whether the onboard game you're going to play is the beginning of your campaign, or if it's something you're just going to play, learn the game, throw it away, and then start your campaign. Because they have 2 very different requirements. Because I can do a lot of things if this game doesn't have to persist past this point.
Yeah. Because my onboarding of Dungeon World lasts about 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that covers both of those things.
Yeah, that's make characters, welcome to the high hall, some giant thing is about to smash you to
and
pieces.
then you understand how the game works.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, these are all the rules of the game. Let's play.
Exactly. All right, so talk about session 0 real quick.
Sure. So this is how we set up the game, the campaign world, and make characters. This is often a one-time subsystem of play.
Sometimes making characters becomes another one if your character dies, but a lot of times for a lot of people, this is a one-time engagement.
This encompasses world creation, character bonding, and initial situation.
Mm-hmm.
Session 1, on the other hand, is the first time we are playing a story in the game and fully engaging the rules. These are things like your skill checks, your combat, your triggering moves, your special abilities, your how resources work, how fate points work, how whatever works.
Yeah.
All those core mechanisms and even some secondary mechanisms, especially that are pertaining to your character.
Yeah, if your game has currencies, if like all
Bennies.
of those things. Yeah,
What does a wild attack mean?
Right.
How does initiative work?
exactly. Okay.
If your game has initiative.
Yep. So a good onboarding will cover all of these things, like in a session or two,
In both sessions,
right?
yeah.
But to be honest, that's actually pretty rare to get both. Most modern games have onboarding to cover session 0, but often leave the GM up to their own to do the session 1 onboarding.
You know, I'll actually say that I don't know if that's 100% true. I'm not disagreeing with you because that's not usually how their core book works.
Right.
But a lot of games have quick starts now. And
Quick starts is a notable exception.
quick starts are trying to do exactly what we're talking about,
Yeah.
I think.
I agree.
I think some do it better than others.
Yeah, but a lot of times the quick start is not in the product.
Why not? Hey, everybody out there making games.
Right. I mean, I will
Put your
say
quick start.
I
Put your
will,
quick start in the book.
I will say this because I was doing writing on the manuscript for Turning Point, that I found verbiage from a previous time I was writing that actually says if you want to jump in and play the game right now, grab the quick start rules. Like that's an option to like include in the game, and some games have done it, but a lot of games don't. So anyway, going back to that thing about that session 0 is frequently covered and not session 1. Sometimes session 1 is a introductory adventure, right? But even those aren't always tightly written. Like they give you an adventure.
We were talking about this at dinner. Like this is the place that they should be.
Yeah.
This is exactly the place that you should make your thing way tighter to show off your game.
Yes. Okay. So cool. So tell me a little bit about session 0 onboarding.
Sure. So this would mean that there's a process for defining the world and what the characters do. Also a process for making characters and connecting them to one another so that they are actually ready for their first adventure.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about session 1 now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So session 1 onboarding is that planned adventure that leads you through some of the system basics, like like we talked about before, making a skill check, running combat, things like that. That's what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and so there are plenty of GMs who are happy with session 0 onboarding and are cool to do their session 1 onboarding because they want to write it themselves. Like,
Yes.
I've certainly done that, right? Like,
I do it all the time, but
Exactly.
I don't do it by writing an adventure. Well, that's not true. Sometimes I do.
yeah, I mean, I write an adventure and then I take time during the adventure to be like, oh, cool. But sometimes I purposely will put into the adventure, like I will say things like, oh, this is going to be the place where I put the first skill check.
That noise in the background that just went away, it's because it's cool enough in this room that we don't
Yes.
necessarily need the air conditioner
The air
anymore.
conditioner will probably return at some
Yes,
point,
at
but
some
we'll
point.
now lower our voices in response.
I don't think I will.
Okay, fair enough. So anyway, it is a lot of GMs, especially experienced GMs, are totally fine doing their own session 1 onboarding. But I think that is very, that's one case, right? Like it's okay if you're experienced, but what if you're not?
Then you make a lot of mistakes and you get to write, 20 years of GMing advice, Phil Vecchione.
Yes,
I
thank
almost
you.
made him spit his
The
coffee.
secret of my success is paved by the dead games that lie in my wake.
For those who couldn't see, he almost spit his coffee. That
I
was
did
great.
almost spit take. That was good.
All right.
Yes. So I also think
Come on, they've led to any nominated books repeatedly.
I'm not lying. Like
Yeah.
that's happened. So the other thing is that there is actually space for session 1 session 1 onboards, right? Because that's quick starts.
Totally. I agree 100%.
And in fact, a quick start can actually avoid having a session 0 on board because you don't actually, for a quick start, like here are your pre-gens, here's a situation.
Yep.
Like
we've already covered all that stuff. Let's just go
let's
on.
go make some skill rolls, blow some shit up.
So a lot of times there are like the quick start is a cool thing. Sometimes you just get box sets that do this stuff. There's been some D&D ones that are really great.
The Cyberpunk Red is essentially
a quick start.
It is a quick start because there's no character gen. There are I think it's 4 or 5 pre-made characters. There's an adventure in it and some setting info.
Yeah,
like get cracking.
It's all the stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, we'll know more when I break into that box and like go take a deep dive, and then we go play it.
Yeah, we're gonna play it on the show, right?
Oh, we're playing it on the show.
Sweet,
already.
I can't wait.
Coolness.
I actually have never played Cyberpunk.
Awesome.
I've played Shadowrun.
No, this is better.
A variety of Shadowrun games.
This is better.
This is better.
Okay.
This is infinitely better.
Well, I mean, I guess that's our overview of onboarding.
Yeah, I think so. So we're gonna check in with the chat room. I saw Bob typing, so hopefully they have some things they want to talk about. And
I saw the Jackal. He had a question.
Good. But before we jump in and talk to the chat room, Chris is going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
So there's this wonderful D&D podcast called Bone, Stone, and Obsidian, where Wayne and Robert, they take a monthly deep dive into the Dark Sun setting and discuss it all across all editions of D&D. But more interestingly, their most recent episode was about how Dark Sun would look in 5th edition D&D these days.
Oh, I think that would be. So first of all, I think Dark Sun should be in 5th edition.
It probably should. It's very interesting to me because for those who aren't aware, Robert Aducci, like he's kind of the D&D Dark Sun person. Like he's been helping maintain a website called athos.org for years and years and years and years and years. And they have in the past bunch of years have translated a lot of the stuff over that crew of people that works on it into 5th edition.
I think that's awesome.
So if there's somebody out there to talk kind of about how the design of 5th edition Dark Sun would look, he's one of those people.
I think Dark Sun is easily one of the most fascinating D&D settings. I think that, I mean, I'll be bold and say this. I think Dark Sun's it's more interesting to me than Forgotten Realms.
Sorry, I just did a thing.
We gotta signal. We have to have a hand signal for dumping the sound.
If you just tell me that, I could turn it down.
Yeah.
Like if you just
adjusting the labs without notifying Chris first.
I mean, I could then
Yes.
Not hurt everybody's
It was
ears.
on the fly, accidental.
people.
You're getting yelled at by the chat room. Don't touch the lab.
Whatever.
Anyway.
Why are they talking about cactus panties? I don't want to know. I give up. I'm
Anyway,
moving away from that.
Anyway,
I mean, because Dark Sun cactus.
Yeah, listen. I will say Dark Sun to me is a more compelling setting than Forgotten Realms.
Sure. I mean, the Forgotten Realms is
like generic fantasy bucket, like has waterfalls and dragons and shit. But Dark Sun, man, Dark Sun's fucking metal. Dark Sun's like fucking half giants with fucking bone mauls, like crushing things. Like
it's also post-apocalyptic.
Fuck yeah, it is. Like it's just saying.
I mean, the only one I'm an Eberron fan, so.
Well, don't get me wrong. Eberron's my other favorite setting, right? Eberron kicks ass, but Eberron is basically the modern world, like magic washed.
No, it's not the modern world.
It's pulp 20s.
It's the 1940s.
It's 1940s, but magic washed. Like, let's just put a big fantasy paintbrush over this thing. Like it's a lightning rail. Zzz.
Sure, like my D&D game is sort of an analog for the Manhattan Project. That's coming up.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I love Eberron, but I love Eberron for that reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I love Eberron because it's not, as we've just coined, waterfalls and dragons fantasy. Like, it's
I don't get the waterfalls.
I don't know. There's fucking waterfalls there's fucking waterfalls in Forgotten Realms. I'm sure there is. Anyway, whatever. I'm being outrageous. Chat room. What's the chat room doing?
Oh man. So Ange had a comment early on. As a player, she doesn't care about the system. Just help her understand what's on her character sheet. That's her focus for onboarding.
Yeah. I mean,
we went back and forth quite a bit on that, and I gave Forbidden Lands as an example of if you're not familiar enough with the system when you're making your characters and you're starting to play, you can easily get some things wrong. We had to go back and go, oh, geez, I need to change something on the character. I need to change some of my gear.
So that's
because we didn't know how some of the stuff worked.
Yes. That's outside?
Yeah, it's outside.
A little music outside, people. I don't think it's going to be too bad. Yeah, knowing like what's on your character sheet's like important. By way of reference, the Pathfinder 2 character sheet.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
It
thing.
depends on how complicated of a game we're playing, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Although, I mean, you should still know, right? Like,
I think no matter how simple or complex a game is, knowing what's on your character sheet is probably important.
yeah, I mean, so you can know how to do the things that you want to do too.
Uh-huh.
Like, you need to understand how to play the game still. You need to understand how the system works so you can make your character do the things that you want them to do.
We actually had to fix our characters in Forbidden Lands because after the first combat, people were like, "Oh shit! Like my strength is too low."
Mm-hmm.
Because strength is your number of hit points.
Oh, hit points.
So, like, whatever your stat is in strength, you have an equal number of hit points until you take a critical wound. So, like, somebody had like a 3 strength, and it was like 1 hit, and they were down, and it was like, whoops.
Yeah.
For scale, what is the how part
So weapons do on average.
No, I meant how the strength score, like your
Like,
stats.
so we had like somebody who had a 3, but what's yours?
I have a 6.
Yeah.
What's the highest?
Oh, at starting character,
Yeah.
not much higher.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it.
The cool part is every time you rest, all of those you get all your points back.
Okay.
But you've combat's a tricky.
I'm just thinking of Lady Blackbird actually, because
Sure.
I look at a character sheet for Lady Blackbird and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of cool stuff on this character sheet, but I don't know what it does. Like, I know that I can do these things, or
Right.
I know I have these like traits or whatnot, but if I don't know if I don't know that I'm supposed to pick one, and then every tag that applies gives me a D6, then
Right.
I don't know how I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do.
And that has to get conveyed to you through the rest of the onboarding process,
Uh-huh.
if there is one.
Yeah.
Now, compare that to a playbook, right? And very quickly, like, you can suss out what's going on in a playbook,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I got some stats, but if I look in the playbook, all of a sudden it says roll plus, like this, like roll plus strength. Oh, I have a strength over here
Yeah.
that has a plus because it tells me I should put these numbers into these spots. Like, you can suss out a little bit more what's going on because with PBTA, more of the actual rules are baked onto the sheet
It's true.
because that's all moves are rule packages.
I still think it's important for the players to know that, like, 10 plus is generally good. 7 and 9
yeah.
is you get generally what you want with the complication. 6 minus means the game master will do something terrible to you.
So the thing
Also, that narrative positioning is terribly important in that game.
Yes. So the thing I do when characters are when people are making characters for Hydra hackers, like at a convention, is I will tell them before you place your stats, 1, flip over the page and look at your first move. That is probably a good indication of the stat you want your +1 or +2 in.
Yes.
And then I hand out the move sheets, and I tell people, take a look at the moves, because if you have a kind of an idea, like you want your guy to be stealthy or something like that, like look at, take a quick look at the moves at what you're rolling, so that you have some idea, like, oh, if I want to be stealthy, I need to have at least a +1 in agility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's an onboarding thing, right? And
Yeah.
that's actually, I mean, that's not written. No, actually, I think I might have written that into the ash can. That might be there. I can't confirm right now, but that is the thing I definitely do when I onboard people when I'm playing, like when I'm running.
Yeah. Ange also said that she thinks there's a big difference between bringing on a single new player and a whole group learning a new game together.
Giant difference. I always ask the question whenever I run Dungeon World is like, who's here has played the game before? Who here is familiar with Power of the Apocalypse, and who here has played, and who here hasn't ever played a game at all?
I'm gonna argue that the one player who hasn't played has it worse than if nobody's played. Because I know I'm taking somewhat of a joking stance on this, but the one player who hasn't played and a table full of people who plays gets like 5 different types of advice, right? Because everybody's trying to teach them their, like, the part they think is important in the game. Whereas if no one knows how to play, everybody comes up together and learns.
I usually try to move it so fast that
Right.
I'm the one who gets
Now,
to teach.
for Dungeon World, I don't think that's a big deal because there isn't actually that much stuff you have to onboard. But like, if you are a new player and you sit down with your D&D character, like, you've got people all over the place. Like, let me tell you what you need to do at 2nd level. You know what you need to pick? You need to pick, like, everybody's got a thing, right? Like, so I think sometimes that can be hard because you get a whole bunch of voices and people aren't being
Helpful?
No. Everybody, I think, is trying to be helpful, but they're all trying to be helpful.
I didn't say they were trying to. I didn't say they weren't trying to be helpful. I said they weren't being helpful.
Right. I think what happens is everybody wants to share a piece of advice, and it's like overload.
Yeah, there's that.
Right, where like almost better either than everyone be quiet and let the GM get the player onboarded, or again, like if you're coming in new.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think that simpler games, that's not as big of a deal.
Sure.
Like there's not a ton of system mastery for Dungeon World.
That's true.
Like have good conversation, roll high.
Yes.
Like everything else the GM's going to tell you when to roll. The GM's going to tell you like. It really is like it's a very easy game for onboarding.
The GM's gonna tell you to trigger the move.
Yeah. Like I mean, literally, I tell new players, don't worry about these moves. Start talking. I'll stop you and tell you when you're gonna roll something.
Yeah. Avi the Jackal had a question. Does onboarding interact with genre and tone? Would different genres or tones affect your onboarding? Would you do onboarding before, during, or after discussion of genre, tone, concept, aim?
No, because your setting and your situation
should
convey your tone and your genre.
Yeah, because if I'm onboarding somebody to Call of Cthulhu, like we're having that talk pretty early.
Also your rules can help with that too, because if you're playing Call of Cthulhu and you're like, yeah, madness is a thing and your sanity matters.
Right.
Like that conveys a certain tone.
Yep.
Also, if you're playing that was weird. We even have the windows down. Also, if you're playing a gumshoe game, then the concept of the core clue conveys a certain kind of play style.
Yeah.
So like all that stuff, actually your onboarding should convey all of that stuff. But it should just do it. Like if you're doing it the way it's supposed to be done to get the game across.
It should be in there.
Yeah.
It should be in there. Now, if you do have to have a specific tone discussion or content discussion, like, hey, we're playing Call of Cthulhu, how are you all on body horror?
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, that also should be in your onboarding, right? Because we shouldn't be jumping into the game and then coming back later and being like, by the way, how do you all feel about body horror as, Bob turns into a Shaga?
Yeah, it's always the trick with tone, with genre too. Like, which genre? Are you talking about a genre or are you talking about a subgenre within the genre, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with tone a lot of times too. Like, yeah, we're playing Call of Cthulhu, but we're going to play it paranoia style. But, like, why?
Yeah. Are we going to play
sure. I don't want to
slapstick
say why.
Call of Cthulhu?
Yeah, I don't want to say why, because people probably would like. There's probably people out there who enjoy that.
I mean, it would
I'm not here to judge anybody.
Certainly be different and interesting.
Yeah. I'm not here to judge anybody, but playing like then you have like 6 clones.
Play like Reanimator. It's not 6 clones. You just keep getting reanimated.
And every time you do, you're a little more crazy. Or
in that game, might be
you are a little more crazy.
Yeah. Insane, I think.
Insane might be more. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I do. I mean, I do think that those conversations have to get conveyed, and I think it's like you said, like genre and like situation and setting are going to help bring either it's going to convey it or it's going to bring about that discussion.
Say that again. Sorry.
That the setting and situation will either convey the tone or will probably cause you to have a conversation about it.
Yes.
As you're discussing it and bringing it up.
I think if the game that you're playing has an onboarding thing, it should do it for you.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess it's not a great example, but in Turning Point,
this is a great example. It's exactly the example I was thinking of.
Okay, because in Turning Point, the safety discussion, which is baked into the setup of the game,
it's about tone.
Yeah, stops and start like that's the place where you stop and you start having discussions about lines and veils.
Yeah.
And often, if needed, there are specific questions about that dilemma in that section that's like, hey, besides our general lines and veils, like, for instance, for new drug, like, we might need to know, like, are there certain types of chronic diseases we don't want to talk about in the game?
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is a place to, this is a place for somebody to be like, you know what? I don't want our character to have cancer. Like, that's the thing I'm not comfortable with. And, like, that's where we get to convey that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, no. Okay. Well, thank you. Cool. Any other questions?
I don't have any.
Awesome.
We have. Do we have time for one more? You want to?
Yeah, we'll take one more. Good.
Shadowwarl.
Yeah.
Asked if it was better to have a quick start with a pre-gen (parentheses) partial character sheet to lead into session 0 or 1, and then finish out characters to continue the game.
I will say that I think that is absolutely a way to do it. I think the hard part is that I think that you should throw away your you should throw away your onboard. Like, play your onboard, learn the game, then go back and make your characters because you've learned everything.
Nobody does that.
Nobody does that, right? So
unless you're playing with pre-gens.
Right. But that's the thing. Like, if you're using partial pre-gens, like, hey, here's the characters, like, here's most of the character, here's all the major skills have been picked, pick 5 more, pick 5 more skills off this list. Okay, cool, let's go play. I think that's a perfectly way to onboard, and I think that's awesome if you're doing one-shots at cons, game days, and things like that. But you're absolutely right. If we're playing a campaign, nobody wants to use that character. I say nobody, but somebody I'm sure has played like the pre-gen like their entire career.
I wonder if we did a poll.
Yep.
Hey Rob, if you want to, if we did a poll on Twitter that was like for your one-shot games, would you prefer pre-gens, make the character yourself, or partial pre-gens?
I think there's a problem with that question.
Why?
Because for one-shots, for certain games, there's a convention. Like, the convention for PBTA games is you always make your character. But if I was playing a one-shot of D&D, I would totally hand out pre-gens.
Yeah, but what are people's preferences? That's what I'm asking.
I'm saying preferences are going to start to tie to games, because my preference is both, depending on the system that you're telling me. My preference is system dependent.
My point is, I think the partial pre-gen will come in last by a long, long way.
No, I would suspect that probably is like either I want to make it or make it for me.
Yeah.
Like, although I will say, like, for Fate, doing that thing where, like, here's your character, pick two skills at plus 3 whatever, and then just pick the other ones during play. Like, oh, I can drive. Cool, I'll take drive at +2.
And then they give you your +4 because that's what the character's really good at.
Yeah, you just tell them right up front, like, +4, you're a +4 hacker. That kind of thing.
Yeah, the chat room is pretty even that it depends on system, answering that question.
Sure, but that's why I didn't put system in there.
But here's the funny part. I think it is because we somehow in PBTA made that a convention. You could totally make pre-gen PBTA characters.
I mean, I get that everybody is like saying a different answer, but there's a reason I gave 3 answers. Because I want to see what people will say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the partial pre-gen will be the last.
Yeah, I wouldn't
because
be
it's
surprised.
the game that it's the thing that doesn't really exist.
Right.
Which is why I'm bringing it up, because it's not a thing that we see very often in games. Like, it's a legit methodology to use, but nobody uses it. Or
Correct.
very, very, very,
no,
very,
it's
very few
totally
people use it.
it. I think it branches the 2 parts, right? Because what it says is, as a designer, I'm going to lock down the parts of this character that are super important, but I'm also going to give you a chance to put your own spin on this character by picking the secondary things that make this character cool and unique. And I think it's actually a pretty effective tool because it creates.
I think so too.
It creates a level of engagement because I'm not playing this thing that somebody handed me. I made some decisions about it. I have some emotional investment, but at the same time, it has protected it so that I have not accidentally made a useless character in this scenario.
Yeah, I just don't know why more people don't use it.
I'm with you.
I'm confused by it.
No, I'm with you.
I'm now thinking about it.
At first, I thought you didn't like the concept, but now that we've been talking, I realize I also really like the concept.
It's an interesting concept.
It is an interesting concept, and it is actually a cool way, if you want to do pre-gens for a con game, it's a cool way to let people have some amount of customization because creation of your character gives you emotional connection, but at the same time prevents people who've never played the game from winding up with a character that can't do anything. Like, that's a really nice middle ground.
I am nodding my head at Phil, which plays not
I'm
well
nodding
on the
my head at
podcast.
you, so I'm thinking.
Sometimes it pays to actually say the thing that I'm doing.
Right.
I guess we can get back, unless we've sparked other conversation.
Well, I mean, Rob said that in his opinion, PBTA playbooks are essentially partial pre-gens.
Yeah, but you actually have to sit and, like, there's some, I don't know, I've never, like, it always takes longer than you think to get those characters.
He's actually right though.
They are partial because they give you a stat line.
Not
They
only
give you
do
names.
Not only do they do that, they're all pick lists. Once you start making pick lists of the things, they're partial character sheets.
That's fair.
So I guess I'm wrong because I guess there's a whole genre of them.
But I mean, there's ways like that's a slider, right? There's like playbook, which is like fill out most of this, and then there can be like 70% fate character filled out with missing spots.
Well, I mean, think about the playbook. You get a couple of starting moves. They've been pre-selected for you.
Yep.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's merit in there.
It's a really good observation, is what I'm trying to get at.
I agree.
And you're right, it is a slider, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, let's jump back in.
Cool.
With our intro to onboarding done, let's talk about, let's just continue the discussion.
Let's roll right on
Yeah,
in.
I mean, because we've been discussing it since the break.
Yeah, let's talk about games that do onboarding well. Name a game that onboards well.
I mean, For the Queen.
For the Queen is
For
probably
the Queen, obviously.
For the Queen. The other one we talked about over dinner.
Which one was that?
Mensa Red Box.
Oh yeah, the Mensa Red Box.
Yep.
It's a really good little onboard. It's not perfect because it's not actually the real full game, but it's.
We need to stop because there are a ton of our listeners who have never seen the Mensa Red Box before.
Or even understand what the reference means.
The Mensa Red Box is a version of basic D&D written by Frank Metzer, denoted by the color of the box.
Which is
because if you are not a D&D history buff, the Holmes box was bluish, the Mulvey box was pink, and the Metzner box, which is the box that like the basic system, the next version of the basic system, was red, and it was a early 80s version of the game, specifically designed to help people get started playing, because this was the box set that came out as D&D started to really surge.
And what it does is there's a step-by-step walking you through an adventure.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure that teaches you how to play D&D.
Yeah, like it like you can play it by yourself.
Yep.
You take a character, and it says like you walk down a hallway. If you turn left, go to 14. If you turn right, go to like 37. And you do it. And Bob, what's the name of the character that was in it?
Bargle.
I'm
There's a
pretty
character
sure, right?
named Bargle.
Bargle.
Yes.
Bargle, the what? What is he? He's a. I always forget.
I'll have it in 2 seconds.
Anyways, as he's looking that up, yeah, it did a good job. There's nothing really like it for 5th edition that I know of.
I'm trying to think. The 5th edition box set, the starter set that came out, was really just not all of the player's handbook, right? It wasn't actually like for onboarding. It was an adventure.
Are you talking about the Mines of Phandelver?
Yeah.
The Mines of Phandelver is actually a lovely adventure.
No, I'm not critiquing the adventure. I'm saying like the box set came with the adventure, some character sheets, and a stripped down rule book.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it did.
You still had to figure out how to make character. You had to like read it to make characters. And all that.
A lot of that stuff was like that.
Bargle was a magic user.
Yeah, Bargle the wizard. He was the bad guy.
Yes,
He was the
he starts out as like kind of like a party member, and then becomes the big bad as you move along.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Teaches you all the tropes, like betrayal and.
Your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Yes.
What other games do
God,
onboarding
I
well?
don't know. Like, I'm really hard pressed to say.
Does anybody in the chat room got anything, Bob? For onboarding well? Like, to me, role-playing game books are notoriously bad at onboarding games.
I'm going to say that Inspired by For the Queen is why the Turning Point one actually teaches you how to play the game, because that was a big that was a big concern. The Shadowrun shoot up the Stuffer Shack, not the 7-Eleven. The Stuffer Shack is the 7-Eleven in Shadowrun.
Does it teach you how to play the game well?
No, it doesn't. So what it's designed for, it's designed to be like your first mini encounter. Like you're going to get snacks at the Stuffer Shack, and then some shit goes down. So it makes you engage like the rules of the game, but it like really misses the point of like helping you. Yeah. Like it's not. Although I think when 3rd edition Shadowrun came out, I went and played a Stuffer Shack adventure at Gen Con, and it was a 2-hour game, right? We played the Stuffer Shack one, and it did the opposite of onboarding for me. It confirmed for me that I was not going to buy this game. Like I played it, and I was like, "Yep, it's exactly what I thought it would be." And then I was like, "Well, that's $50 I don't have to spend."
There you go.
So
2 hours to save $50 seems like a good investment.
It was totally. It wasn't unfun, but God, it was cumbersome as hell.
And we rolled at 37d6.
Look, some people like that game, and all the more power to them. Like, I played it and was like, I'm gonna fucking kill myself right in the middle of this game.
I can't think of another game that does onboarding well that I've played.
Yeah, I can't think of it
That's
either.
all right. So this is a bad sign.
Yes.
Like, let's just be clear that among the three of us, with something like, I don't know, 75 years worth of accumulated role-playing experience, we've named
3 things.
3 things.
And they're all
one
more
of
modern.
them, one of them we wrote. One of them is brand new, and the other one is an antique.
Yeah.
Like,
That nobody
that's-
learned from.
right? That's bad. That is bad, game designers. Like, on us too. That's bad.
Ooh. Fall of Magic.
Does it actually have an onboarding,
Does
or
it
is it just
onboard
kind of
you?
easy to play?
I don't know. I don't
Because
remember the
let's be
onboarding
clear,
from it.
onboarding is. Oh, you know what? Maybe it does have a little bit of onboarding because we haven't played it in a while. Because the other game that I'm thinking of that does a decent job of onboarding was The Quiet Year. We just did The Quiet Year.
That's true. The Quiet
with
Year
Dev Dot,
has...
and you pass the little book around. You all take turns reading
Oh,
it.
there you go.
It tells you what to do, like mark up the map now, kind of thing. So yeah, the Quiet Year also had good onboarding.
The game, I'm going to say this, it's so strange. The game that has the most complicated, and by complicated, I mean more complicated than the other games that we're talking about, rule set, out of all of those that is good at onboarding is like Turning Point. Like, it's 11 pages, it's all the rules. Turning Point is not exactly the simplest of games.
No, I mean it's because it's different. You're playing a shared character. You're playing it's different. But
I'm sure there's probably other ones out there we just don't know about.
no, Jason's saying Dread has a pretty good onboarding. Fiasco.
You think Dread has a good onboarding? You have to answer 20 questions. I think it's a terrible onboarding.
That's fair.
It annoys me to no end
Does
to
it
answer
teach
those
the
20
game like,
questions.
through action? Does it like tell you like this is how we draw from the like to me this all right? So to be clear, because we need to kind of put some wrapper around this. Good onboarding. All right, so let's go with great onboarding. Great onboarding is a session 0, session 1 instruction. So I not only get the 20 questions for how to make my character, because that's very session 0, right?
Well, the 20 questions to define your character.
I'm okay, but the 20 but that's session 0 work,
Mhm.
right? Does the game instruct me through guided play, how to take the blocks from the tower, or does it just say in the rules when it's time the GM will tell you to make a pull from the tower, whether you have to pull one tile or 2 tiles?
No, I mean, sure, but that's still really good. Like, as far like that's the game.
No, that's good instructions. That's not good onboarding. Onboarding is an active process, not good writing, not clear rules. Onboarding is an active process of engaging people through guided play to teach them your game.
I don't know if Dread has that.
That's the part. Like, if we're really
I'm not sure that Dread is one of those games that requires.
well, that's also a possibility, right? Like, maybe not every game needs.
Because there's no adventure scenario for that game, really.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right. But this is the part I'm trying to harp on, is that it looks like from the chat room that people are talking about like it's easy to learn the game. That's not onboarding. Onboarding is an active process, right? If we go back to that definition, right? We go back all the way up. I'm gonna scroll. If we go back to that definition, an action or process of integrating players into a game and familiarizing them with the system, setting, and situation, right? So a game being easy to play does not make it a good onboarding. It makes it a game that's easy to play. Conversely, a game that's more complex, something like Dungeons and Dragons, would benefit greatly from having an onboarding process.
I mean, the 20 questions in Dread help onboard you to the setting and the situation.
Sure. But does it teach you the system?
They're effective that way.
Right. So that might be a good, not great onboarding, right? And a great onboarding would take you into like your first, like not Dread, but like in another game through your first combat, right? But Dread like is simpler. So I do think that simpler games probably have lesser requirements for onboarding. Therefore, the bar is lowered.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Lasers and Feelings.
Lasers and Feelings is so dirt simple it requires no actual onboarding. It is.
Yeah.
It's so dirt simple requires no actual onboarding.
I mean, Dread is also simple to the point where it requires very little onboarding, other than the 20 questions, which are really effective at it. So, I mean, I would say that based on our criteria, that it is great onboarding. I will agree with Jason.
Okay.
Because make the pulls as the game master requires based on the difficulty of the situation.
Sure. That's not guided play. That's just instruction.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that's the same thing as Lasers and Feelings.
Sure, but that also is a game that has no onboarding.
Yeah.
That's just a simple game to learn to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Because if a game is simple to learn, it probably doesn't need an onboard.
Although Lasers and Feelings does a very good job of onboarding the situation and the setting.
Yeah, it does. It does really good at that.
So I guess when it comes to simple games, we have to just not worry about the system. We have to worry about the setting and the situation.
Sure.
If it's so easy that I can explain to you how to play the game in a paragraph, then
we don't actually need to onboard that part of the game.
Instead of like saying bad onboarding system, we just like, well, that's a nullified.
We don't need
factor.
to actually do that part.
Yeah, that's a nullified factor. But the other two parts are still important.
Right. So when I think of onboarding, right? So I think of like video games, like especially like first person shooters where it's like, okay, okay, Major, let's walk down to the gunnery range, pick up this gun, and fire a few rounds down at the target.
Why don't you just talk about Half-Life 2?
Half-Life 1.
Or Half-Life 1.
Yeah, Half-Life 1 has a great onboarding.
Yeah.
Because it teaches you like about the setting, because you're hearing all the stuff about Black Mesa while you're on the train, right? And then when you get to the base, it actually has you like put on your suit and check it out. Like, here, run a diagnostic, turn on the flashlight, like, and then it actually has you cause the situation. Because it's like, hey, put the sample into the reactor, and then like all hell breaks loose, right? So yeah, I mean, I think
like it gives you the setting and the situation.
It guides you through it, right?
Yeah, and then those are important things, right? Like to the idea of onboarding based on our definition,
right? Because here's what is now in modern times replacing onboarding. So first of all, onboarding is non-existent, but here's how people are getting around not doing onboarding. Is that they're putting the effort onto somebody else, and that's APs. Because when you want to learn how to play a game, and you're like, shit, I wonder how this game's played, right? You can go listen to the AP. Somebody is doing the onboarding work somewhere, but you're getting the benefit of it by like, I'm going to go listen to this AP. Okay, this is what this game sounds like when it's played.
We are 97% a role-playing game podcast, but there's a lot of board games that are terrible at this too.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to.
Tons of board games.
Yeah, we don't have to. I mean, we can also single out board games are also pretty rough at this. It's
there are certain instruction manuals, and I'm like, wow, this is a really great flow to teach me to play this game. And then there's a really terrible flow that made me have to jump around the rule book a ton. Fantasy Flight is notorious for this because they have so many fucking rules.
Yeah, I really like anytime a board game or role-playing game for that matter will talk to you. Like, it's not a cold set of instructions, but it's like, hey, you've decided to buy this game, and I'm going to help you get your first game. I'm going to help you get your first round of this game started. Here's what I need you to do. Open up the board, right? Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Mo just said, there's a QR code in a lot of games now for watch it played.
Yes, which is another way to onboard.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, see, so Lovecraft is right? Lovecraft is like, you know which game I wish had onboarding? Invisible Sun.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, that is probably a game that needs a lot of onboarding.
I mean, I want to play it. It's surreal fantasy, and I'm all about surreal.
Sure.
Surreal anything, so.
Yeah, so this is, so I still think there's a place for onboarding. And I'll tell you where I really think there's a place for onboarding is even more so when we talk about new players coming on. And not new players as in, hey, my buddy at work is curious about D&D. He's gonna come join my group, or I'm gonna run some D&D for him. Because guess what? I definitely can onboard somebody onto a role-playing game. But it's the scenario, and there are tons of people who live this scenario, and I'm sure it still happens now, where somebody's aunt, their cool aunt went to Barnes and Noble and was like, cool, I hear everybody talking about the Dungeons and Dragons, right? and like goes and gets a player's handbook or a box set or something, wraps it up and gives it to a kid who's got no exposure.
I feel like this is like an anecdote from young Phil's
It
life.
wasn't, because I got onboarded by the GM who ran my game.
But I've heard that story so many times from so many
No, but
different people.
absolutely, people always have that story. Like my cool aunt bought me this game and I didn't know what to do with it. Right? Because there was like no real good onboarding, except for Metzner. Like if you played Metzner Redbox, like if that was your first exposure, like you had some idea what you were doing.
So should we talk about games that don't have good onboarding?
Well, I guess since we could hardly talk about the ones that had good ones, let's change it from games that don't have good onboarding to games that should have onboarding.
Sure.
Let's talk about games that should have onboarding support, be it watch it be played, actual play, guided adventure, whatever.
So Dungeons and Dragons.
Without a doubt, you are the flagship of the hobby. Your whole goal should be to help more people get into this game.
Yeah, they've done that effectively via APs.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, if you have a QR code in your game that actually takes you to the Wizards website so you can watch something,
they don't.
yeah.
But they've made so many of them, and they,
Well, other people have made them, but again.
No, Wizards makes a bunch of their own.
Oh well, that's good.
Like Chris Perkins has been running a game for forever.
Is that like if I went to if I was like a 12-year-old kid and didn't know anything about the streaming world, got my player's handbook. Is there something in the player's handbook that says go to this website?
I don't think so.
That's bad.
But also, they're not. There might be. I don't know. I'd have to go. So here's the thing: nobody uses so many of us don't use the player's handbook anymore. We just use D&D Beyond. That's the problem.
Even if D&D, well, then let me just say this: if D&D Beyond doesn't have a thing that's like
it's on the front page.
Okay, well, so that's.
There are the people who are involved with Wizards of the Coast are on the front page, and they're like updates for their APs and things like that.
So
like D&D Beyond and Wizards of the Coast are very tied
But now,
together.
let me ask you a question. Do they do one where they actually pause and teach the game while they're...
They do not, as far as I know.
So there's
but that's okay. Hold on. I don't watch them, so I don't know.
That's fair. But hopefully they have one like that. Like, hopefully, like, there's one where Chris Perkins, like, stops and is like, hey, so-and-so's about to make a skill check.
Well, if they don't, they should have that show.
They totally should. This is a piece where people could take a page from college campuses where instructional designers actually do this kind of stuff for help professors design curriculum to teach these to teach things.
I mean, educational games are a thing, or
educating people on games.
Well, there's that.
Right.
Also the idea of educational games too.
So tell me about your thoughts about Forbidden Lands, because we talked about Forbidden Lands. So Forbidden Lands has
a bunch of subsystems, right?
Well, not only does it have a bunch of subsystems, it also doesn't come with an adventure.
Correct.
Like it literally is like pick a hex on the map and start here.
So here's what I would do. The number of subsystems that you have.
Yeah.
I would have it. I don't know how they function.
Yep.
I don't know how
That's fair.
They exist. I would have the first, and it doesn't have to be specific hexes, but the first 5 to 10 hexes.
Yeah.
Whatever they are, they're like a list, and you cross them off as people explore them. Like not necessarily the hex that they go into, but whatever the random hexes.
Yeah.
I have no idea how the game works exactly.
I will tell you how I did it.
All right.
So
my point is like every time they enter a hex, you are going to highlight one of the subsystems.
Okay. It's not radically different from that in that there's a subsystem for travel, there's a subsystem for crafting, there's combat, there's magic, there's skill checks, those kinds of things. So what I did was I picked a spot on the map and I was like, you have been traveling for the last couple days. There's a town behind you, and I pointed to it on the map, like you've been on the road. Let's roll to move into the next hex. Like, let's do the subsystem to move into the next hex. And they did, and then I'm like, you find what looks like an overturned caravan, bodies laying about, and there's a wolf picking through the bodies that when it sees you turns and starts growling.
So you had a scripted set of encounters.
Totally scripted.
I teach the game, which is fine.
only scripted those. I only scripted that part.
The only difference between what you and me would do is I would have it be randomized because the game's supposed to be random, I assume.
Right. So what I did was I wrote that one hex. Right now it isn't completely randomized because part of the game is adventure sites. So there are actual drop-in pre-made things that you drop into.
And you put them on the map before you start playing?
No.
so they show up randomly too.
So the way the map is done is that there are markers for like towns, dungeons, and ruins,
okay.
but they don't tell you what they are.
Oh, okay.
The book has 1 town, 1 ruin, 1 dungeon in it. So like I put the characters not far from a town. And so we did the one planned encounter, and I gave them a little hook, which was they found a lockbox that was addressed to the brewmaster in the town.
Sure.
So they were like, cool, we should probably, like, we're good, we'll go take it to the town. And then we randomly did all the, like, we rolled for all the movement leading up to the town.
Which showed off that system.
Which got us through a day's worth of travel, which is the whole subsystem. Like, we did hunting and foraging, we did hiking, camp, and rest.
And they taught all that stuff.
Yeah. And then it just reinforced it the next session where we had to keep moving.
Yeah.
So it was like, but I did, so purposely, I put a combat encounter in because I wanted to
teach it.
I wanted to teach it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. But then after that hex, I was like, cool, now like we're just
Well, if you know all the game at that point.
right, like at this point, well now we'll just like
Right.
let's just do random shit now. And they did. They randomly ran in the second or third hex they ran into an encounter that they had to run away from kind of thing. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So when I have a number of subsystems in a game, I will, and they're not supposed to be scripted out in any way, shape, or form. Like the game is supposed to be like random. I will make it a shrinking random chart.
Yeah.
So like once a thing happens, it just comes off the chart, and then something else can happen that's on the chart, but then that comes off the chart until there's only the one thing left, and then you're done with that chart and you've taught the game.
Yeah, I'm a little more proscribed than you. So what I do is I will create a situation.
It sounds like the game has to be a little more prescribed.
For that one, it is.
Yeah.
But like for instance, like I ran D20 Star Wars like back in the day, and I don't know if you remember D20 Star Wars.
No,
Not the 4th edition one.
Not
like
Saga, the one
not
before
Saga,
that.
the one before that.
Either way.
So that one had like fucking like 10 subsystems. Like it had spaceships and vehicles and the Force. So
the game wasn't that good anyway.
it wasn't that good. But what I did was before the campaign started, I invited people over. We took some pre-gens and like we played a combat, and then we did a vehicle chase, and then we did starship chases, like combat. And then I was like, cool, let's go make some characters and play the game now. But I had a fuck ton more time in those days.
Yeah.
Like, but it was a fucking ton of work.
Mhm.
Like it was a ton of work to make like little scenarios for all of those subsystems. But I do think, and I think this is the same point you're bringing up and the same point I'm bringing up in different manners, when you are onboarding players to a game with a lot of subsystems, don't engage every subsystem at once.
No,
you
do
feed them
one at a time.
Yeah,
right, you dole out those subsystems one at a time so that they get a taste for that subsystem, and then the next one comes along.
And if for some reason there are supposed to be like multiple subsystems intertwined, we can talk about the design then, because the design might be problematic.
Well, and sometimes you just need like pacing. Like for instance, when we talk about Blades games, those 3 cycles, free, the job, and the downtime, are very interlinked. Like you're kind of in that cycle. Like you're always in that cycle. In that game.
You're always in one stage of that circle.
Right. So for onboarding purposes, where you start your first game, like I think if I was to go back and run a Blades game again, I would probably start at the job.
I started the job.
Yeah, I would be like, I'm not in, like, we'll do free play later. Like, and I think the little thing that they give you, the little situations they give you in the book, you played a different setting in Scum and Villainy than I did. The one I played was like, you're in prison, you need to break out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you didn't even do free play. We were like, cool, how you guys getting out of prison?
I think that game actually, Scum and Villainy intends you to start on a job.
Yeah, so I think
everything stems from the first
right,
job.
and I think Scum and Villainy is smart for doing that. I think Scum and Villainy is smart because it puts you...
Did Blaze in the Dark not do that? I thought it started you on a job too.
Yeah, no, you start like a little free play before the job. You don't actually start right on the edge of the job. You start with an offer for a job.
That seems like a terrible idea.
Because Baz gives you like the offer for a job, I think is what...
You could turn that down?
Maybe?
I don't know, it's been so long. It doesn't matter.
I wouldn't...
Yeah.
I mean, but yes, maybe you could have. Which, I liked the one in Scum and Villainy because it was the one we played, because I played the Star Wars setting. That one was basically Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Like, you were in space jail, and they're gonna figure out who you are very shortly. Like, how are you getting out of space jail?
Yeah, we did Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, see, Avi's right? You start about Bazo talking about the red sashes. You don't start at the job.
Yep.
He offers you the job. He offers you the job, but it's implied you're going to take it. But
he might not, and that would change
some groups,
things.
I'm sure, would be like,
or they both axe murder you, right? The red sashes and Bazo Baz.
Yeah.
But I actually like the if we use the Drew Smith
get to the fucking monkey.
to the fucking monkey.
Get to the fucking
Is that Drew or is that
it's a band, but Drew likes to say it.
Yeah, but is it a Tony or a Drew thing? I
It was one of those two.
Yeah, one of those.
I'm just gonna give it to Drew.
There we go.
Tony can yell at me later.
The get to the fucking monkey is in a Blades game is to actually start at the what I think is the most interesting part initially is the job. Because then it'll flow. Yeah. It'll flow right into the downtime, and then you can like come back around and be like, cool, let's talk about what you guys are gonna do next, right? That's your free play, and then bam, we're into another job.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's actually the best. Now that's not onboarding. Well, I guess it is onboarding because you can control all that as a GM. But that's where, like, I think you and I agree.
That's controlling the situation.
Yeah, I think you and I agree that that's the proper situation to start the game into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk about something else? You want to talk about more assisting with onboarding? You want to talk about?
I mean, from a GMing perspective, I think we covered this, right? We talked about like dole out your subsystems carefully. I think the other piece of advice we can pick from this is pick your situation. Be cognizant of the situation you pick, because I think the closer you are to action, the better onboarding is. Because the closer you are to action, the sooner you will engage the mechanics of the game. If we're having a talk with Bazo Baz about maybe you want to help me with the red sashes, we're just talking. We're not actually rolling any dice yet. I'm not learning anything more about the mechanics.
Yeah. Most of us all know how to roleplay.
But also thinking new people, but yes.
Yeah, even new people can roleplay. I don't mean play the game. I mean, play a character.
Play a character, sure.
Be it from, first, second, third, fourth, whatever person.
Yep.
I don't see somebody play from fourth person.
But I think that
is that like a
fourth person? I'm not sure.
Outside of time, right?
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
Yeah. So I think that there is value in selecting where you drop the game into, right? Like where you put the needle down. What other things can you help with onboarding? I think anything that like cheat sheets.
That helps.
Right? Like, hey guys, this gangbusters.
Hey folks.
Sorry. Hey folks, this gangbusters combat's really complicated. Here's a cheat sheet with the outline for the 10 steps for gun combat.
Even then it was still complicated.
Yeah, it was. It's not easy.
Why are we making fun of gangbusters again? We fixed that game.
We did fix it. We fixed it. You know what? Jerry mentioned that Star Frontiers had one of those guided, the choose your own adventure games.
Yeah.
I actually think so did Gangbusters.
Really?
I'm pretty sure, because Gangbusters and Star Frontiers were like sibling games. They were made at the same time. I think there is a choose your own adventure.
I feel bad for
Gangbusters piece.
Play that.
Well, I think they play like the much simpler version.
Oh.
Yeah.
What, not with the Tommy gun that can shoot, Never mind. Go listen to the Gangbusters episodes. They're really good. They're really hilarious.
Yeah. So yes, handouts. Again, I think that like APs are a form of onboarding.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're a terrible form of onboarding. Like, the goal of onboarding is to kind of learn how to play the game. If I can learn it from, I know for board games, I've gone and watched videos on how to play. That
isn't a nice onboard for the rules of the game, but it doesn't do anything for the situation or the setting.
It could.
It could, but
it could, depending on who makes the.
But
AP.
if I went and watched the wild cards from I can't remember the name of the AP, but if they're playing East Texas University,
sure,
their East Texas University is not going to look like the East Texas University that I'm going to play necessarily.
So I think we have to be careful here, right? Watching any AP can be, you're right, a good way to onboard system, as long as those people are playing the system as written. Which if you've never played the game, you may have no idea.
Yeah, I was just talking about the setting, the characters that become more important.
Right.
Like, I'll be expecting a certain kind of dean or chancellor, and they're not there.
Right. But here's the other part of that, right? An AP is not required to play the game with all the rules,
That's accurate too.
or may not know they're playing the game wrong,
Correct.
which it makes an AP shaky because it's not. It makes it shaky because you just don't know, right? So this is how, like, I mean, listen, for all of us who grew up in the '80s, this is how we all learned how to play D&D wrong. It was because everybody we learned it from also played it wrong. It's why everybody plays Monopoly wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because no one actually reads the rules to Monopoly. You learn it from your uncle, and then you're just going around the board 50 times, not buying
I've had
property.
such good conversations with Sean about how like your D&D game was different from the D&D game even down your street.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the guys who played over there played a different, like, literally a different D&D game.
Yep.
Yeah. It was weird. It made conventions weird. Like when I went to a game thing when I was like 10 or 11, and like tried playing D&D with some other groups. Like just jumped in. It was some weird stuff.
Yeah. From the jamming perspective, I think all the things we talked about are the ways that you onboard.
Yeah.
Like you have to pick the things that are important to the game, to the situation, to the setting, and emphasize those things, and do them one at a time.
Deliberate.
Be deliberate about it.
Talk about the last question.
From a game design perspective, like how do you design onboarding onto your game? I would just say go look at Turning Point because that's pretty good, or go look at For the Queen because that's pretty good. How do you do it for a more complicated game though?
I think that it goes to the thing you're saying, which is if I was going to onboard D&D, I would be very deliberate about the adventure, would be very canned and on rails, because I would make sure that it did a skill check before it did a combat. And I might, even before the combat, I might come up with a situation that makes one of the casters cast a spell, just so that we could try casting before we got to the combat.
Also, it would behoove the characters to make a saving throw at some point, because saving throws are different from skill checks, which are different from attack rolls.
Exactly.
Those are the three basic D20 rolls in D&D.
So I definitely think you can do it, but what it requires, which is what experienced players hate, is you need to put a thing on rails. And I specifically say rails. This is not a branching linear adventure or anything else. This is a proscribed tour into the system.
I don't know if you necessarily need to do it that way, though.
I mean, I think you're not wrong. I think you're just making a lot of work for yourself.
But I am actually writing an adventure. Like, I'm assuming I'm writing a published adventure to fulfill this particular need.
Oh, so Lovecraft's comment just made me really sad. Like, gave up reading Invisible Sun. It was work and not fun. Like, that's
too bad.
That's too bad, because that's a game that game's a major investment.
It is.
That game should absolutely bend over backwards to make sure you get into that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, that is absolutely.
What's up, Monty Cook Games? You're better than that. I know you are.
I feel like it's a thing that we.
I don't know anyone who's played that game. I know plenty of people who've bought it.
Right.
I don't know anyone who's played it.
That's a weird feeling, right? Like, yes. I don't either.
I know tons of people who've played Numenera.
I know tons of people who own it. Oh,
Yeah.
I know tons of people who've played Numenera.
Tons and tons of people. The game's easy to play. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think, though, that as designers it is worth the effort to, aside from your actual game, write the quick start.
I'm sorry. I know one person who's played it, Darcy Ross, but that's not fair.
No,
she works
employee
pretty much works for Monty Cook Games.
Played it with Monty Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, but so let me go back and say this. I think it's worth, as a designer, putting in extra time and effort, which designers are loath to do because of page count and costs and everything else. But I would go make a separate quick start to your game. Make a thing that starts and teaches your game. And if you want to make it a stretch goal, I think that's a ridiculously easy stretch goal to promise. Right? Because you're gonna write some words and you're gonna crib a whole bunch of your rules to make it. But I think having that on board, is critical, especially if your game has either a heavy rules lift.
Kevin Lovecraft is actually playing Invisible Sun.
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
I didn't realize that. I know one person.
I know one person too. So I think if your game has a heavy rules lift, you should be thinking about this. And if you want to make it a Kickstart goal, I also think that's perfectly fine. Hey, at $1,000 over, we're going to write the quick start to help everybody play the game. And we'll release it free to make sure more people play the game. I don't know, whatever. Like, we would do that. I mean, we did it the other way around.
And we'll put a link in our book to make sure that people can go get the quick start.
Right. I mean, the whole reason we made the quick start for Turning Point was to get people to play it before we commit to making the full book, so that people will be like, oh yeah, I totally want to, like, I totally played this game. I totally want to support the full game now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I do think. I think we really, as designers, don't think about this, because we as designers onboard people when we run our games at cons, but we need to start we need to make sure that we're thinking, like, what do we do about the person who's picked up this book for the first time? Now, some games will just tell you, this is your first role-playing game, you should put this down and go play something else.
Some will.
Some will, most don't. But think about it. Like, if your target audience isn't experienced players, what are you doing to support them?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing to support them? I don't know.
Well,
we did for Turning Point, but what will we do for Hydra Hackers? Like, I now feel like we probably are going to have to make a bigger commitment now that I've run my mouth.
Yes, we will, in fact, have to make a bigger commitment. Other than, again, Hydra Hackers, once again, is a Power of the Apocalypse game, which has a partially done character sheet.
Right, but there's some things about it. Like, I think we will probably do a quick start for Hydra Hack. And
requires some sort of adventure that will teach people the game.
Yeah, I think we'll do a Hydra Hack, because that would be a fun way to kind of do a little bit of stuff, plus teach the Hydra Hack, and then send you underway. Or a full cycle. The neighborhood, the Hydra Hack, all of that.
Probably all of those things, because that will teach you the game.
Pretty much.
Incomplete.
Pretty much, you could learn the whole cycle of the game.
Do these things and you'll learn the game.
Absolutely.
Especially if we can get it done in like a half an hour to an hour.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, I like that quick start AP idea. That's kind of like our EP. But it would be more educational. So it would be like, stop and be like, hey, we're about to make our first skill check. So the way we make a skill check is we look on the character sheet and we find this bonus. Then we pick up our die, we roll it, we add the numbers. The GM will have a target difficulty.
Well, it looks like we have a new segment on Misdirected. We're not just kidding.
No, but I mean, that kind of AP, like, there's definite value.
There is some serious value to that.
Yeah, there is definitely value in that.
All right.
Yeah, you want to roll?
Yeah, that's our discussion on onboarding.
Hey, that's a lot more discussion than I thought we were going to have initially.
Yeah? Really?
I mean, I was a topic that interests me, but, like, I really liked how I liked our discussion.
It was good.
Yeah.
Conversation corner?
Yeah.
Check in with these. Let's check in with our folks.
You should. We also have no bumper for the conversation corner because of my iPad.
I can do it. I'll make the bumper sound.
Yeah, a lot of people are agreeing that a quick start as part of a stretch goal is a good way to do that.
Yeah.
I feel
Everybody
like
should have quick starts.
I feel like you should just make a quick start anyway if you're making a game, just because it'll help sell your game.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, that might just be a best practices thing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a thing we should work towards.
A lot of video games have demos. A quick start is essentially a demo.
Yeah. Senda says, who wants to do one of those with the new MMP Twitch channel coming soon?
Hey, I mean, I think it'll be fun to do the Ditch Lily one.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ditch Lily thing's pretty canned. Like, you don't make characters in the Ditch Lilies.
No,
like, there are 4 characters. Pick one up. Like,
is there anything else in the chat room?
No, I think we're good.
You want to take Jerry's question?
Actually, I want to take Rob's. I want to take Rob's real quick. Are we drawing a line between quick starts and ash cans? Absolutely. An ash can is a stripped down version of the rules of the game. Hydra Hackers is an ash can. You can go run your own game out of it for a limited amount of time before you run out of material.
But it's got the rules and stuff in there, but it's not really teaching you effectively how to play the game.
I would say if you want to see the difference, not that I'm telling you to go buy both, but go look at the Hydra Hackers ash can. Go look at the Turning Point quick start. You will see a very big difference in how they're written and what they do.
Yeah.
One is definitely a quick start meant to get you playing, and one is definitely a stripped down set of rules in a very simple format to get you out there to go run a game.
And the reality is like, we're not telling you to go buy this stuff because we want you to buy encoded products.
Always.
But those are the games that we know best.
Well, sure.
We know exactly what they've done.
Because we did them.
Yeah. So they're very distinctly different. Like, we can speak to them with much more authority than other
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's nothing in the Hydra Hackers ash can where I attempted to teach you how to play the game. There is a section in the back that is my advice for how to run the game. Like, hey, you're going to be running the game. Here's some things, like here's where you should get ideas, and here's where here's some pseudo plumbing terms, all of that. But it's not a quick start.
Pseudo plumbing tools or terms. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Jerry's question was, what about settings that are more complicated than the rules?
Again, parse it out.
Yeah.
Parse it out. If you're running L5R, start small.
You have to start small. Start with a clan.
Feed them pieces.
They mentioned things like the strange. Actually, I don't think the strange is that complicated of a setting.
Again, with the strange, start with one of the dimensions.
Yeah.
Stay on Earth, then go to Fantasyland. Then go to weird sci-fi place.
Don't. And if you really want to have something that is from weird Fantasyland come to Earth to seed it beforehand.
Yeah. It gives you're still on Earth, but it gives you a taste of, oh, there's something else out here.
Yeah.
But don't here's what you don't do. In your first adventure, don't go to all 3 settings. You're just going to be vomiting
I am
setting
shaking
material.
my head up and down.
Yeah, you'll just be vomiting setting material at your players.
And they won't remember any of it.
Exactly. So again, it's all about doling out those pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, he clarified. He meant games with settings that were tough to understand. Simple mechanics.
Yeah, settings.
That's what we just talked about.
So with mechanics, dole out those pieces. Get somebody comfortable with one part of the setting before you hit them with the next part. Don't get into... Like Chris said, if you're playing L5R or Vampire, start with one clan.
Yeah.
Then introduce the next clan. Then introduce the hierarchy of meeting the Emperor or something. Don't start with a don't start with a festival where everybody's there together.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah. Yep.
In fact, if you watch any serialized story, hardly anybody ever starts that deep inside.
Correct. Otherwise, you wind up this.
There are stories that do that, but they a lot of times those kinds of stories are asking the audience to try to play catch up.
Yes.
And that's on purpose usually.
Oh yeah. That's what is it? Morgan. Morgan in his writing, not so much Morgan in the Alter Carbon TV show, but in the writings. Morgan's, but you are playing catch up.
You just try to
a lot.
He'll drop a reference to some piece of tech, and he won't explain what it is or what it does. You kind of have an idea from the setting, from the context.
He comes back around at some point.
Eventually, somewhere along the line, he'll say something about it and go into more detail. But he'll just be like, "Oh yeah, Tebet knife. What's that?"
A lot of anime often just doles it out a little bit.
Oh yeah. Anime's one that drops right into the situation and is you'll figure out this setting.
Yeah, but I mean, but anime will even dole out information slowly over time.
Right.
Because it's only giving you the parts that you need.
Yeah.
As an example, you are in an underground bunker type place, drilling holes to expand your civilization because something terrible is going on outside.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know what's going on outside, but don't go to the surface.
Well, Cowboy Bebop doesn't address Earth until until partway through the series, right? Cowboy Bebop leaves Earth alone for the first couple of sessions. You get all comfortable with it.
But it's not important.
No, but I mean, you're out, trucking around the galaxy, and you're talking about Mars and everything else, and then they're oh, by the way, Earth. As we're talking about setting chunks, right?
Yeah.
Earth. Oh yeah, that thing's decimated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good stuff. Conversation corner.
Yes. Good enough.
Thanks.
All right then. What the hell was that?
That's called the soundboard's broken and the show must go on.
Oh, what do you want to talk about?
Stuff and stuff.
We got 4 minutes.
Played some Minecraft. Had some problems with our Minecraft server.
But
Schmitty and Rich really dug in and had to recover the server, the game. Schmitty had to go into the Minecraft editor and actually find the busted part of the game and excise it, which unfortunately was a chunk of Victor's base, including Victor's ME network. I know we all said that casually, but if my ME network was to vanish, I got a couple drawers of rocks and some tools.
Yep.
My gold, my iron, gone. So not a trivial thing, but we're a very socialist Minecraft society. So we'll all pitch back in. Plus Schmitty was really nice. Schmitty said that any piece of equipment or something that that Victor was missing, he can spawn, like he can go in the admin tools and spawn one for him in the game. So like in case he was missing something, but the rest of us will all donate chunks of stuff.
They're having a really interesting conversation in the Slack channel, not in the Slack channel, in the chat room for
Okay.
about how like so many characters, like how many they don't explain Jack in certain stories and things like that. So like that's super hard to replicate in a role playing game because while as an audience we don't often know what's going on, the characters understand their setting because they've lived in it.
Yes.
So as characters that play role-playing games, it often behooves us to understand our setting so we can exist in it.
When you are watching a TV show, you don't have to make any decisions. When you are watching media, you are a passive. When you're reading or watching, you are a passive.
It's not really what I'm getting at. I'm getting at the idea of like the role-playing game character.
What I'm getting at is, it's fine for you to leave out details if I'm passive and the character is taking actions. But if you ask me to take the action, right, the first thing is like, I don't know what to do. I don't have enough information, right? Because it's an active media.
So finding the proper amount of information to make sure that people have is always the tricky part.
Exactly. Which is why sometimes in like a setting, like especially when you're early on when you're running a game, you have to stop and be like, by the way, the cultural norm for this game is that goblins are, like goblins show up in towns all the time. It's not weird, right? And then like jump back into the game.
Yeah, that's why tropes are useful. It's also why if you're going to subvert a trope, you need to explain it.
Yeah, like pretty early on. Yeah.
But it's almost why it's easier at times to, instead of having to like craft the world yourself, to let the players help you build the world.
Right.
Because then they understand the history of the world that they're playing.
Exactly.
It's why some of those ideas like, let's play Microscope to build our setting. Really neat. Because then everybody understands the history of the world that you're living in.
Absolutely. But I think somebody's saying like you couldn't play the Crystal Gems. You could play Steven without understanding what's going on. But you can't play the Crystal Gems.
That's right.
Because they know what happened. Right? Like Pearl knows a lot of shit.
Yeah. Pearl knows a lot of shit.
Right. Like you can't.
No
spoilers, but Pearl knows a lot of shit. You can't play Pearl with a blank character sheet and expect to make functional decisions, meaningful, I shouldn't say functional, meaningful decisions in the game.
Yeah.
But you can totally do that as Steven or Connie.
Correct. But because Pearl knows all the secrets of the setting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or the situation, I should say.
Pearl's read the whole GM's guide.
Yeah.
Like, Pearl read the section that's like, if you're a player, don't read this section.
Pearl wrote the GM's guide.
Yeah.
Well, at least one of them did.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's why in the Morgan books, Morgan can get away with not telling you about a piece of technology because there's not really a fucking thing you're going to do about it. You're just going to keep reading until you pick up the context.
Yeah.
But if my character sheet said Tevis knife and some guy was coming at me, I'd want to fucking know what that thing is.
Yeah. Is this a good time to use this, or should I be like, no?
Yeah, exactly. Like, is this the time I use this thing?
Yeah.
Like,
do you want the guy dead horribly, or do you want to just incapacitate him?
Right, like you could just bust his nose, like with your hand. So yeah, like that's why that thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
This is that dangerous thing where people say like you play it exactly like a book, and we always say like a role-playing experience is not like
any
other
media.
It parallels other media.
And there's ways to produce those experiences.
Correct.
But they require certain kinds of preparation and planning and execution.
Yes.
Like, if you go and play Microscope, then you have a basis.
Well, because you've already filled in all the knowledge. And then you're just playing like you don't have the knowledge. And that's very different than not having
you
knowledge.
could play like you have the knowledge then. Your characters
you
all
totally
would
play like,
have the knowledge.
Totally play like this is established history for our characters.
Also, you could... So here's the thing. If you're going to play a game where some people have knowledge and some people don't have knowledge, well, one, you could give people the knowledge. Or you could do things like play a game to fill in that knowledge gap. So that it's not like, well, I'm going to go read this thing, that's fine for some people, not fine for others.
Right.
And then you have those other people that show up and don't know. Then you have this really interesting mix of things, and then you decide who does what with the information.
Right. I do think, though, that I think that would be an interesting experiment to run at the table. I think that you'd have to have the right group and everybody on board at first.
Of course.
Because there's definitely a have and have not that could create some animosity at the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where the have players are like, you clods, of course you don't touch that thing. Right? And the other players are like, fuck you, why didn't you tell me? Right? Like that.
Well, I mean, I am always going off the assumption that people are buying into the situation.
That's fair. I'm always nervous that some GM's going to get clever and be like, you know what'd be cool? I'm going to tell half the players what's going on.
What do we always say around here? Consent?
Don't be clever. That should be the next.
Don't we always say around here? Consent, consent, consent?
Consent, consent, consent.
And if you think you're being clever,
Don't.
you're not.
Also, come up with your boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Decide what's okay and what's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to, does anybody else have anything for the conversation corner? We talked about the Minecraft server. I did a little bit of Shadow Sprawl, my Shadowrun hack of the Sprawl.
Yeah, we did that.
We could just go.
We can roll on out.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
Let's do the thing.
Let's roll to the after
I
show.
totally brought up a different gaming topic in there.
Yeah, you did.
It was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's what
show.
we were having a conversation in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And we are actually in the corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Patreon shoutouts. Brandon Barnes, the old school DM, Sean Merwin, Troy Sandlin, Will Doyle, Zach Goins, Chris Constantine, Cindy Moore, Eric Mengi, Eric Simon, Miko Froelich, Andrew Dempsey, V, Waxberg, Brett,
Chris Steele.
Curtis Y. Takahashi. I mean, anytime I point at you, you know what you have to say.
I was right there with you, man.
Daniel Thomas, Dennis Malloy, J. David Chrisman, J.T. Evans, Jen Pixelscapes Gagney, Joseph Peralta, Mike Amer, Ninjabi, The Rainmaker, Richard Ruane, Richard Wyatt, Roy McLeod, Savannah Sizer, Scott Ryder, Sean P. Kelly, and Stephen Farrell. Oh, there's more. Never mind, there's more.
Keep going.
Tabletop Bellhop, T. Acoustic, Theodore Atkinson, Thomas Bagley, Victor Wyatt. I think I whipped around. I think I copied and whipped around. I did. I totally copied and whipped around.
And Zach Goins one more time.
Yeah, sure.
Alrighty then. Thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, you're welcome. Come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with our other listeners in the ever awesome chat room for life. And of course, you can ask us a few questions along the way.
So, if you can't make it to this live show, you could always check out our podcast each week. Wherever you get your podcasts, like Stitcher. That's my favorite place to go. You can also take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network. There's a lot of them, and they go by these names: Down with D&D, Bone Stone and Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, Cyber Speak with Darcy and Troy, The Gnome Cast, the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars, Zhang Yu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. If that's not enough for you, which it might not be, I mean, that's a lot of podcasts.
You don't know.
Maybe you commute a lot.
Yeah, maybe you commute a lot. You could also check out these podcasts. There are sibling podcasts, The Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have successfully onboarded your players into your game, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly on the old school email system, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Check out our awesome, so totally cool Facebook group.
Oh yeah.
Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is @MisdirectedMark. He's at Robert M. Everson. He's the Light 101, and I'm DNA Phil. And of course, check out the Misdirected Mark forums. Forums.misdirectedmark.com.
Yes, that.
Absolutely. Hey, if you're on board with what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can and should support our Patreon campaigns. MMP and Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhangyu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhangyu Hustle. And last but certainly not least, Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases when we have them.
I don't even know what to do with that Facebook bump. It was so
Ding.
I'm wearing. Am I wearing enough pieces of what is it? A flash?
You only have 15 pieces of flair.
Yeah. I don't know. Am I wearing enough pieces of flair?
I mean, you're never wearing any flair because you're wearing black shirts all the time.
correct.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, which is the media arm of Encoded Designs. A flairful mic drop.
We out.